All right, everybody, welcome back to the KSR YouTube channel, where today we're going to be doing some work on Spencer's car. It's been a little bit since you guys have seen much of it on the channel. Been tied up with other stuff, you know, LS Fest and Bristol 1000 and Cleveland cars and all that fun stuff. But we are back in the shop, full swing. Drew's still working on the new wheel tubs for the Lexus. And I'm working on getting the 4-link brackets done for Spencer's car. So you can see we've added this cross member here, and they are going to be welded. Well, between that and the floor are going to be these brackets. But first, I've got to weld these doubler plates on. So if you see, there's 2 1/4-inch thick brackets there, and then these doubler brackets just to add in some extra strength. So I'm gonna get started on welding these on, and then we'll put them back in the car. All right, well, we're jumping off into a time lapse pretty quick here. Kind of didn't do a great job kicking this video off, but some of that is because just been more focused on trying to get some more work done in the shop lately. And, you know, we had the burnout car project that, you know, like most projects, it kind of snowballed a little bit bigger than what we thought it was going to. But that's race cars. And if you have a race car or any kind of car or project or even a boat or anything, you know that sometimes working on them, well, not sometimes, pretty much all the time, they take longer than you think it's going to, and you'll just run into things that you didn't know you were going to run into. Whether it be a problem with the parts that you've purchased, or you run into a problem where you find an issue that you didn't know you had when you started the project. But that just kind of seems like that's how race cars are. So, as you can see, I'm on the welding bench. We are using the HTP TIG welder for this project, and it's their 300 amp water cooled unit that we recently got, and we are using Furic cups on the TIG torch, which you can see it's kind of got a large cup there. I've been using those for a few years, and it gives really good shielding gas coverage so that your welds look really nice when they're done. And with these, I'm using a lot of heat because we are welding 1/4-inch to 1/8 inch, or actually could say that the other way because we're welding the 1/8 inch thick doublers onto the 1/4-inch thick brackets. And if you watch really closely, you'll see like where I have the clamps on the back, it's actually trying to pull it apart, just because there's a lot of force that when you weld to one side of something, you know, it's trying to pull the metal towards your weld, and it warped it a little bit. You know, I'm not sure how much is normal because we haven't done a ton of 4-link brackets and stuff like this, but definitely seemed like it pulled it a little bit. I ended up kind of pushing on it a little bit to square it back up in the hydraulic press. Didn't seem to be too big of a deal. So once we got it straight at the end, you know, all the holes line up, and when it's in the car, we will actually take a reamer and go through each and every one of the holes in the brackets. And what I'm doing now is welding some tubular pieces between each of the brackets so that they hold their shape better outside of just the brackets, you know, being out there freestanding, only welded to the tubes. So that adds a lot of, you know, torsional rigidity to this piece, and there's going to be a lot of power getting pushed through these brackets, so we want them to be nice and strong. All right, when I saw how I did one side of the brackets, and I need to experiment around with that method a little bit. It kind of bowed it a little bit, and I had to straighten it back out in the press. But things are looking good now. And how we are going to center them back up, because you might have seen before we had actual tubes through here while they were in the car a minute ago. Well, I guess it was a couple hours ago. But we're going to make some machined pieces that set the right distance between these two. And then we'll have, you know, probably take this bolt out and take this bolt out, and then we'll have a bolt go all the way into this machined solid aluminum piece. Same for the other side, and then that will bolt everything together so that it's a one assembled unit in the car. The idea is that everything is perfectly parallel with each other, and all of these holes are lined up across the way with each other. So we haven't done a ton of 4-link stuff aside from, you know, the factory 4-link cars like G-bodies and Mustangs and early Chevelles and A-bodies, I guess you could call those. But it's a little different, obviously, when you're completely cutting out and removing all of the original suspension points and adding back in your own aftermarket 4-link. I want to try and keep everything as true and as straight as possible, just so the power that's being applied through the chassis, you know, you figure there's 8 bolts that connect the rear end to the car for the 4-link bars. You got 4 on each end of each 4-link bar, so that's a lot to have to endure power-wise and pushing the car, which, depending on which class he runs, he may have to be 3,000 pounds. And if we're trying to put 3,000 horsepower through 3,000 pounds, not the first engine, just so we're clear, but, oops. So the first engine won't have that much power because it's a twin turbo LS, but we're hoping to be somewhere in the 2,000 range with that. And then beyond that, possibly later down the road, a big block, you know, to go super, super fast. But we got something else to show too while I'm here thinking about it. This is the transmission tunnel kit that we've gotten out because we are going to be doing a double frame rail in the car, which is going to be an extra set of tubes that go down the middle of the car, almost like a spine. Let's call it that. So it will go from somewhere like here, come down towards the middle, and then, you know, have a bar that then comes back up and either ties into the side of the 4-link brackets, like maybe we curve it, and then there will also be some vertical bars that go in there. Got a few things to figure out there, but the way I like to do things is, you know, obviously the transmission tunnel is going to be one of the last things we really bolt into the car. But if I have that now, I can design the tubes for the double frame rail to fit in and around that transmission tunnel kit so that it fits, instead of it just being a wild guess and nothing fits, and then we have to spend even more time cutting the tunnel because it didn't quite fit this right, didn't quite fit that right. So the idea is that we're going to tuck the transmission, or those tubes, just inside of the transmission tunnel, and then it'll just be some Zeus fasteners to bolt the tunnel in and out of the car. So I'm going to get back to mounting those in the car as soon as we get some other metal in. I didn't order enough material to machine those spacers between the two, but we'll have that here in just a few seconds, and then we'll be back on it. All right, well, like I said a second ago, we were gonna bolt it together. And granted, this is next day. The last part of the video was being shot the night before, but we ended up just bolting it through some of the extra holes so that this all holds it great. Oh, I stepped on the welder cord. It's got a... Oh, step on it! It's got a alarm if you cut off the coolant flow to the torch. So, it's a nice little feature of the new big HTP TIG welder setup we got there. But I'm gonna go ahead and set up a time lapse on this and weld all that, weld that down there. We've got these plates to cap in the front. I need to weld this up, and CJ is actually working on the back of the funny car cage. And then once we get all of this in, we're gonna start building backwards, you know, for the bars that come in here, and all the rear shocks and anti-roll bar and the wheel tubs and the back bumper and the parachute anchor point and the anchor for the hitch, which, I mean, it's the same as the parachute, but anyways, did you get her? Oh, look at that.
Hopefully it's straight up and down.
does it match the other one? That's the real important question. I'm not necessarily concerned with that being straight up and down, as long as they're the same with each other. Okay. But I mean, if it worked out that they were straight up and down, that'd be cool, but...
lean back 1.6.
That's fine, because these are lean back too. Yeah. So, and what that'll let us do is just move the seat back a little bit further and get him inside of the funny car cage a little bit better. So, this bar, you can see we put a bend in because these brackets tip back a little bit, and the funny car cage lands on that. Well, instead of just straight lining it, you know, from here straight up to the hoop, that would just be weird looking. So we're going up here to curve those in, and anytime you put a bend in a tube that you have to notch, they get complicated and they get very difficult to fit. And when you've got a pair of them to match, they get a little difficult, right?
A little bit.
A little bit. So
this is my second attempt.
Second attempt? That's fine. It happens.
I got my first one pretty sure.
So is that the second tube, or you got to make another one to match this one now? Okay, cool. Well, while I'm welding, he's going to be working on that, and then we'll get some progress done on this thing. And actually, before I weld those in, we've got to loosely mock up the seat to make sure that they're kind of centered on the seat, and we get the inner funny car bar here all set up and all that the same. So time for me to get to welding. He's going to get the bending and notching tubes. Well, if you've made it this far into the video, hopefully you're a subscriber already. But if you're not a subscriber, please subscribe to the channel. You know, we try and keep up to date on a lot of our shop projects, as well as some of the fun events that we go do. You know, obviously we're a part of the Cletus and Cars events, and as well as, you know, LS Fest. And we've got a Trans Am race coming up with Lee and the Viper after we just won Watkins Glen last week. So we've got some more events coming up. We've got Soccer Mom going to be having her out at the track more. Lots and lots of fun stuff going on. You might even see us at the next race down there at the Freedom Factory. Maybe just with a couple of trucks. We'll see. That's just a hint for some of you guys. Maybe it happens, maybe it doesn't. We're not 100% sure yet. It's kind of getting down to the last minute, and you know, sometimes you just get a wild idea and try to make things happen at the last minute. But if you've been following along with what's going on in the time lapse, you can see I'm moving back and forth, welding a little bit on one bracket, moving over to the other one, welding a little bit on it, climbing in and around and over to get my positioning right. And I've had some people ask me why I don't weld all the way around, like even on, say, a tube joint. And the short answer is I'm not that good as far as being able to weld a piece of tube all the way around in a full circle like, you know, pipe fitters do. For race cars and TIG welding, I'd rather make sure that I keep the torch angle and everything just right so that I know I get really good penetration between the two tubes and the filler rod. And when it comes to trying to make that full circle, I can't do it. So I think it's also good, especially when welding assemblies in like I'm doing here, to kind of spread the heat around. And I think that's good for trying to prevent things from warping. You know, there's going to be some movement when you're welding any kind of metal parts together. It just seems to be the way things go. And some metals will move more than others. For example, stainless steel is going to move a lot more than in what any kind of like 4130 chromoly or even mild steel will move. And we see that a lot with our turbo kit fabrications or header building. You know, when you heat up the pipe, you'll see it move on the other end. And another example is like the exhaust on Lee's Viper. It's got a 3-inch stainless steel exhaust pipe down each side. You know, it's basically a 3-inch straight pipe. And at the back of that pipe, where it comes through the bodywork, there is easily a 1/2-inch gap. Well, when he's on track and the exhaust is up to full temperature, the tailpipe touches the back side of the hole in the bodywork. So it's growing a half an inch over that, you know, probably 6 foot long piece of pipe down the side of the car. Now it's getting pretty doggone hot in that car, being that he runs, you know, they're 100-lap or 100-mile races. And that's just one of the things you've got to deal with when you're welding metal together. So kind of getting close to wrapping up the welding project on getting these 4-link brackets welded into Spencer's car. And there's probably a little bit more bracing we're going to do here instead of just having that large hole between the bracket and the main hoop. There's 1 bar that's required for the SFI spec for the chassis, but then we're also going to have a drive shaft loop welded between them, and then possibly a diagonal. Anytime I can add a diagonal into a chassis, I really like doing that. If you guys think of, you know, triangles are really strong. Like if you stand on the top of a triangle, it's a whole lot stronger than standing on top of a box. Just because there's the angled support is way better than just having parallel support. All right, well, you saw me doing a bunch of welding, and I do still need to come back and finish the strips on each side, but it's a little bit after 5 o'clock and I need to get my kids home, feed them dinner, all that stuff. You know, these videos get filmed in between when I pick them up from school on the days that I have them. So, gotta get home tonight to take care of dinner and all that fun stuff. But I think that'll probably wrap up this video. We'll be back on this car in more videos upcoming as we get more and more stuff, you know, ironed out on it. Kind of waited on the 4-link brackets a little bit and then the doublers, and now that we've got those, the whole back of the car is going to happen fairly quick. At least I think I have a goal to have this thing running by December. So obviously we got to put a lot of hours between now and then, because we have to take the roll cage and chassis out of the car to have it powder coated, as well as I need to engineer the front K-member. Got lots of little things that we still have to do to knock this thing out. But like I said, that's gonna wrap up this video. Appreciate everybody watching and subscribing. Don't get scammed, like I said in the video that I filmed earlier today. Hopefully the scammers, we gotta get ahead of them. Anyways, thanks for watching. See you guys next time.